or the horniness that we see is like too serious.
Yeah, right. It's not just like, oh, hey, this person's sexy. It's like, oh, they're sexy. And I don't know if that has a meaningful difference on audio, but it means something different in my heart, and that's the most important thing.
Great. Thanks for the opening clip to the show.
Welcome to Mortified, the Friendship Quest, a podcast where two long-distance friends bounce media recommendations, all in hopes the other will like it.
I'm
Aaron.
a polar bear's head.
And this week, we duel our six brothers for the throne with Stardust. Before we cross the wall, remember you can help us on Mortified, the Legitimacy Quest by subscribing to us on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, signing up for our monthly newsletter through the link in our show notes, or following us on Twitter and Tumblr at MortifiedPod.
Aaron,
what do you know about Neil Gaiman?
I know he's got a Tumblr.
Yeah, that's kind of all I know about him. Coraline. He did Coraline.
Oh, and Good Omens with Terry Pratchett.
Good Omens. American Gods, right?
Sandman.
Sandman.
Yeah.
Neil Gaiman, our friend and yours. This is actually probably my first Neil Gaiman, like, ever engaging with any of his works. Like all the way through. I don't think I've seen any of those except in little gift sets on Tumblr, as you said.
See Coraline?
No, never seen Coraline. Too scary.
It is quite spooky. It is actually quite scary.
Incredibly terrifying. Like, famously, the story for Coraline is that, like, his editor was like, "Oh yeah, no, this book is way too scary, but let me read it to my daughter, and if she thinks it's too scary, then we won't publish it." And the daughter reads it, and she's like, "Oh no, I loved it." And then years later, she's like, "No, I shit myself. That was fucking terrifying. But I didn't want you. But I didn't want to seem like not afraid. So I wanted to seem cool in front of my mom. So I just lied, and that's how Coraline got published."
Yeah.
So shout outs to that kid.
Oh yeah, Coraline's spooky. I have engaged with Good Omens. I quite like Good Omens. The show.
I've heard
my
good stuff.
friend and yours, Michael Sheen, is in it.
Of Twilight.
Of Twilight fame.
That's the only thing Good Omens and Twilight. Those are the only things he's been.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the only part of his career that matters.
So, Leyla, can you tell me a little bit about why, we're doing kind of a romance theme this February. What kind of drew you to Stardust? Because I have very few memories. I watched, like, the first 10 minutes of this on a plane in 2007, and that's kind of it. But what's your deal with this?
This was one of those movies that I found watching on the couch on the TV when I had access to channels. If you remember channels.
I remember those a long time ago.
Yeah, my mom had just, we had a ton of them growing up for some reason. And I remember I found this on one of the movie channels, and I watched it, and I just thought it was the most charming, like, wild thing. And it had everything. It had Robert De Niro cross-dressing. It had Michelle Pfeiffer's cheekbones. It had kind of cheesy special effects. Like a very earnest love story. The whole thing is very '07. But I loved it. I've loved it. That and of the same era, there's a movie called Penelope with Christina Ricci. Those are like my two favorite mid-aughts romance films, and I go back to them quite frequently.
Yeah. Do you feel like, in the, I guess, 16 years since this film's come out, you feel like it aged well?
I think it aged appropriately for having been in, like, I didn't watch it, and I didn't, like, cringe at any point. There were moments where I was like, all right, well.
Yeah.
But I think it aged okay,
Yeah.
It's fine.
I think it was a completely charming, it is, honestly, a lot better, as far as its, representations and jokes than a lot of the, media of that era. It did notably have Ricky Gervais in it, which is very funny to think of, considering he's now a famous shithead. But like, yeah, I think this was a completely enjoyable movie, and like, it kind of gets at what it's going for. So this is based off a Neil Gaiman book that was written in, what, 99 or 97? 99. And I found this interesting when I was doing a little bit of Wikipedia research, which is that he wanted to create a style of like fantasy romance that was pre-Tolkienian, which is interesting. And I feel like does kind of explain some of the weird plot idiosyncrasies that are going on, like Act 2, because I felt like Act 2 really rambled. But like, I think that might have been the point.
I think it was the point. It felt quite Ghibli-esque to me. Where it was just trying to set a mood for you. It was trying to indulge in some whimsy. And I got a lot of whimsy out of it. Yeah, I quite love this movie. I think it's quite charming. And even though Act 2 rambles, I think it rambles in a way where I was like, yeah, I'll buy it. I think my thought watching this, and I'll be curious to read the book. We plan to read the book. Unfortunately, we're adults with schedules, and things got in the way. I own the book. I plan on reading it. But I'm curious as to how the book treats that portion of the story. Because watching it, my one thought was like, now here's a movie I wish was a miniseries.
I think it may have been planned for... No, I think they were going to release the book as like 4 separate like portions. But yeah, it does seem like it might have benefited from being broken up a little bit.
Interesting, because it's quite a short book.
Yeah, I think... So originally, the origin of this book is that Neil Gaiman was like at a party with that person who illustrated it. Hold on, let me find the link. But the guy who illustrated it is named Charles Vess, and apparently he like pulled Charles away from the party. It was like, hey, I have this great idea, Charles, and Charles was like, all right, whatever, Neil. But like originally they were going to illustrate it and try to get it into like a 4-issue comic miniseries. Because this is apparently one of the things that Neil Gaiman could do at the time. Stardust came out once a month in a square-bound high-gloss booklet. Yeah, so it was originally a 4-issue comic miniseries. Very interesting. But yeah, obviously it was eventually, condensed into one thing. But yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense why the structure is the way it is.
Yeah, so I think I would have loved like a 4-episode miniseries. But it is what it is, and that's all well and good. Before we get into the meat, did you recognize Tristan? I had to IMDb it.
No. I think I was watching with my wife, though, and she recognized Tristan's dad, I want to say.
What's Tristan's dad from?
Young Tristan's dad is Ben Barnes from Shadow and Bone.
Oh! Wow, I did not clock him.
It was an incredible shot from my partner.
Tristan is Daredevil.
Oh, shit.
Matthew
really?
Cox, he's Daredevil. Matt Murdock, baby.
Huh. Good for him.
And then the composer for this film, Ilana Shkeri, I knew I'd heard his name somewhere. Fun fact, composer for The Sims 4.
The Sims 4?
Many other things. But he's done 2 video games, and one of them is The Sims 4.
Do you happen to know what the other video game is?
So the other one is Ghost of Tsushima.
Holy shit!
Yeah, he co-composed on that one.
Wow, that's 2 wildly different games.
He also composed for the apparently Shaun the Sheep movie.
Oh, hell yeah. Listen, that's a great career. Really, man, jack of all trades.
Yeah, honey, he has the range.
Master of all. Yeah, seriously. We've talked for a while. We haven't really talked about the plot of this before.
I think it's fine if we vamp. It's a pretty, I won't say straightforward, but it's not the longest summary we've ever done.
I mean, it's pretty breezy. Yeah, it's the story is uncomplicated. Do you want to do it?
Sure. So, once upon a merry time in the country we know as England, in the village of Wall.
Bad name. Terrible name for a city.
Great name. Fuck you. I love Wall.
It's so stupid.
A young man sought to cross over the wall surrounding wall. He tricked the gatekeeper and entered a magical land of fairies, where he was immediately hit upon and then fed by Una, an enslaved princess in the service of a witch. They hooked up, and 9 months later, Tristan Thorn was born and left for his papa at the wall, who took just very well to the concept of suddenly being a father.
Like, listen, the gatekeeper shows up with a human child, and it's like, hey, this one is for you. And he's just like, oh, sick, a baby. Takes it, does not ask any questions. It's just like, all right, cool, I'm a dad now. That rules.
He seems to be a pretty good dad.
Honestly, incredible. Well done. That's parenthood. That's a good dad right there.
18 years later, that baby in the basket turns into Matt Murdock. He is now 18, and he's a shopkeeper, a shop boy at a local shop.
A shop boy, specifically, yeah.
And he's in love with the beauty of the village, Victoria, a rude bitch who's gonna marry Henry Cavill.
I hate Victoria so much.
She is a caricature, and it's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, right, like, you know, she's intentionally meant to be, like, clearly taking advantage of him. Like, she, like, cuts in front of the line at the shop. And she's like, oh, hey, Tristan, kind of flounces her hair, and then it's like, hey, will you get me all of these things? It's like a huge laundry list. And he's like, and she's like, oh, and you could walk me home if you want. And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. And then it cuts to him practicing in the mirror how he's going to tell his father that he lost his job. Just like, oh, Tristan, you dumb idiot.
Oh, he's so whipped. It's so sad.
It's bad. It's bad.
So he ends up, you know, his father, again, very supportive, is just like, go get her, Tiger. Don't worry about blonde Henry Cavill with a pencil mustache. It's going to be fine.
Blonde Henry Cavill is so much.
Honestly, he crushes it for the 20 seconds he's in this movie. It's great. And so Tristan says, you know, he's like, okay, I'll go get the girl. He spends all of his savings on a champagne picnic, during which they see the falling of a star. And Tristan, who is one of the funnier pieces of dialogue is Victoria sitting there going, well, Humphrey, Henry Cavill, is going all the way to Ipswich to get me a wedding ring. And Tristan's like, Ipswich, which is like a neighboring village, he's like, I would go to London, Paris, Africa, like whatever. And I'm like, boy, calm down, but it's fine. He decides instead that he will go fetch this falling star for his love, Victoria. And if he returns in a week on her birthday with the fallen star, she will marry him instead. Aaron, did your wife make you go get a falling star for her?
I'm trying to think. It was definitely brought up. I think we decided against it and instead did go with the blood diamond, but yeah. Yeah, it was, you know, listen, marriage, it's hard. You gotta do a big, the thing I know, listen, fellas, listen, our audience of like 30 fellas.
It is 30 now, which is more than the 10 that it was. Hello, 30 fellas.
Hey, 30 boys. Women love grand gestures. If you're trying to show a lady how you feel about her, a big grand gesture with no lead up, and you don't even really have to have talked to her before, and she doesn't really need to like you, but if you like see somebody that you're attracted to, you should just do a big, large, grand gesture for her, and then she has to fall in love with you. And that's just science. That's just Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate have been telling me a lot about how to seduce women. And you can take it from me, a married man. This is the advice that will get you the girl.
It's true. I'm genetically programmed to like blood diamonds, especially when they're a surprise.
Surprises also. People love surprises.
Yeah, I would love a man I never met to surprise me with a diamond. And I'm only kind of half kidding because I would pawn it and it would help me. But anyway, meanwhile, the King of Stormhold, which is this fairy realm on the other side of the wall, he's dying. And he's gathered his sons, Primus, Tertius, and Septimus. And
Secondus.
Secundus, yes. And to determine who will rule the kingdom when he dies, he throws his necklace into the air and it knocks a star out of the sky. And he says, whoever will return the ruby, that will be the true king of Stormhold.
I glossed over the summary, the actual specifics of that, because Secundus is immediately pushed out of a window, which is really good. That's a really good way to set the tone for like the kind of characters you're dealing with. They're just like, the king's like, hey, why are all my sons still alive? Like, I have like 3 sons still alive. That's stupid.
Too many sons.
Y'all are pussies. Yeah, y'all. By the time I was your age, I killed all 11 of my brothers. Anyway, and then like immediately one of them gets pushed off, and then the remaining 2 have a good laugh with their father in the room. Just really, really characterizes the king of Stormhold and his offspring as a bunch of huge assholes, which is very fun.
Yeah, and also an important thing is that the ghosts of all the brothers are all stuck with each other until a new king is crowned. So there's just these like 5 men who are stuck, burnt, blown over, flattened, just chilling. It's one of my favorite parts of this flick. So
it's really good.
In order to go get the star, Tristan has to cross the wall. But the gatekeeper, 18 years older but apparently still just as fucking fit, has been working out and absolutely beats the shit out of him. He does a backflip over the wall and everything. It's incredible.
It's so bad that Tristan has to go back to his dad and like get like iced. It's really, his dad's like, that man's like 98 years old. What the hell happened to you? And he's like, well, he's been training, Dad. Okay.
Yeah, and also I looked up that actor. He passed in 2012, so this was like one of the last things that he did. And he was one of the most charming parts of the film. I really love his funny little top hat and the way at the end he's just like, fuck it, I hate this.
That would be David Kelly. Shout outs to you, Mr. Kelly.
David Kelly, like long career. Really, really, really charming job in this film. This is one of those movies that just has a bunch of really, 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 really famous British people in it. It's a good time. Speaking of David Tennant, where the fuck were you? Eh? I could have.
Let's see.
I could have used a David Tennant.
He hadn't been the Doctor yet at this point.
Anyway, I love David Tennant. So as he's sitting there, nursing his wounds, Tristan's dad is like, what the fuck were you doing going over the wall? And he turns it back around on him, and he's like, I could ask you the same shit. And that's when Tristan's dad pulls out the stuff that came in the basket with Tristan, his little baby bonuses. And he's like, hey, here's a letter. I haven't read it. You should, it's from your mother to you. And again, like dad points, he didn't read it. He wasn't trying to hide it. He was just waiting till his son was like old enough. And in that letter was a candle. And basically the candle's magic is you think of the place you want to go and the candle will teleport you there. It's called the Babylon candle. There's a lovely letter and a flower. That is a flower, a token of luck from his mother that his father had before him. So, because Tristan is a little stupid and very horny in a 2007 kind of way, he lights the candle, and he starts out thinking about his mom, and then he suddenly starts thinking about Victoria and the stars. So where does he end up? On top of Yvain. And who is Yvain? Yvain's the star. Surprise!
It's a good time.
It's a good time, yeah. The star's a person. So Yvain rightfully points out that maybe bringing an injured, kidnapped woman as a gift to your beloved is, like, not the fucking move, but our lover boy won't be swayed. He wraps the chain around her, and he says, you're fucking coming with me, and she says, fine. And the deal is that once he takes her to Victoria, he'll give her the Babylon candle so she can go home. Meanwhile, more characters. We get the 3 witches, led by none other than Michelle fucking Pfeiffer. What is she doing in this movie? I don't know. Do I love that she's there?
The most is what she's doing.
She's in it to win it. What's that movie everybody really... Hocus Pocus who?
Right. No, this is exactly that, but with Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah, she was great. When she's, her own age and not being made up to be a crone. So they want the star because if they eat the heart of the star, they will live forever and have youth and beauty and better magic. So Michelle Pfeiffer, being the eldest, is like, ladies, I'm going to use up the last of the star that we had, and I'm going to go track her down. So she gets to youthen up, she gets to moisten up, and go track down Tristan and Yvain. Now, if you'll recall, Tristan has kidnapped Yvain, so they're not, like, thrilled with each other. And while he's searching for food in the forest, a unicorn appears and helps Yvain escape bondage. I thought this ruled.
This is an interesting narrative conceit. I think that I think this is a thing that just straight up happens in the book. Oh, I think based on the summary I read, it seemed like this movie kept like kind of close to a lot of the stuff that happens in the book, except for the stuff with Robert De Niro. But don't worry about that; we'll get there. But like, yeah, I'm just wondering, like, as a plot thing, it seems like a weird thing to do, which is like, and then a unicorn shows up, and the unicorn helps her escape. And, like, if this was a different kind of movie, I think I would be more annoyed. But, like, this movie, this film is telling a story that is, like, very much like, and then a bunch of weird shit happened. They met a bunch of weirdos, and then they had little hijinks. And, like, it is very much like, I don't want to say monster of the week, but, like, very much, like, formulaic, like, and then this happened, and then this happened. And, like, we'll occasionally cut back to the bad guys, but, like, the bad guys don't really affect the plot until the very end. It's mostly about, I guess there's like one place where Yvain's in danger coming up, but like for the most part, you know, you don't get a whole lot of setup and payoff except for like, you know, that the bad guys are out there hunting down Yvain. And, you know, I think for the kind of story it's going for, it's fine. I think I would be more critical if this movie was like in any way trying to be more serious, but it's not. So I think it's a completely fine and weird plot point.
Yeah, I love a movie that says yes and. It's like yes, and the star is a girl, and yes, and then there's a unicorn, and then they get on a pirate ship. Like it's so much, and I love it. I love maximalist fantasy. It's very fun.
It's great.
So now freed of bondage, Yvain is like, fuck this, and fuck Tristan, and fuck Victoria. I'm going home. And so she goes and she finds this tavern. And, you know, the lovely mistress of the tavern offers her a warm bed and food and a bath. And she starts glowing because she's a star and she's so happy. And then she gets offered a massage. And what she doesn't know is that the lady of the inn is Michelle Pfeiffer. And she's there with a knife and she's going to cut her fucking heart out. But who stumbles in? If you thought Tristan, you're wrong. Fucking Primus. Dipshit Primus.
It's great.
Stumbles into this inn, run by the way, not just Michelle Pfeiffer, but a boy she kidnapped and turned into a goat, and then turned back into a boy, and then turned into a girl. Trans is his gender. No questions asked.
Well, here's the thing, right? The one of these people was always a human. So the woman who gets transed was always a human. The other person was a goat that got humaned. So played by the guy who plays Mr. Weasley in the Harry Potter films. Apparently,
it is literally every British actor in this film.
Yeah, truly. And he's just like he's just like I'm a goat. I'm a goat in a monkey body, and I'm gonna do goat shit. And he's just like he's like eating shit constantly, like eating like clothes and stuff. And Michelle Pfeiffer has to like snap at him, like, hey. Knock that shit off. It's really good.
It's really, really good. At one point, he, like, when she tells him to come here, instead of going around the bar, he, like, hops on the bar like a goat.
Yes.
The physicality is incredible. You know, at this point, Michelle Pfeiffer offers Primus some poison wine, and he says, no, I shan't drink any wine until my brother is dead, because he did just see one of his other brothers poisoned. So, you know, gotta be careful. But unfortunately, he's too annoying, so Michelle Pfeiffer slits his fucking throat. And his naked-ass ghost joins the lineup of his brothers.
Yeah, I like that his ghost is just butt-ass nude.
Butt-ass nude and his throat slit.
Yeah, and all his brothers are like looking at his dick like, huh, well.
So that leaves Septimus as the final brother, right? He's the last one. So Tristan now gets offered the poison wine, but who swoops in? The fucking unicorn! Unicorn says, don't drink that shit!
There we go.
Knocks the wine out of his hand. He sees the wine smoking. He's like, oh shit. And he goes in. He saves Yvain. I keep wanting to call her Yvette. He saves Yvain. And, Michelle Pfeiffer's there. And she uses up all her magic. And everything is green flame. She's going to kill them. And he tells Yvain, hold me and think of home. And so she thinks of home.
Stupid. He's so fucking stupid.
The sky. And he thinks of home. Wall. And they light the candle. And they end up in the clouds.
It's really good. That's a really fun, little thing, which is where would he think home is? Where would she think home is? What's the average of the two in the middle of a thunderstorm? That's great. That's fun.
And then they get swooped up by lightning pirates.
Led by Robert De Niro for some reason.
Listen, if you're going to get two American actors on the mid-aughts, get Robert De Niro and Michelle Pfeiffer.
What is Robert De Niro doing, Leyla?
What is he doing? Vibing, I think.
Because I think the thing that I associate him most with is, mobster movies, right? That's
this
kind of the big one. This is as close as you could get to
a mobster role in these kinds of movies.
Right, but, he was in Goodfellas, right? He was in, The Untouchables, right? He was in The Godfather Part 2. And then, the most recent thing that I remember him being in is from a Bim Bam bit. It's The War with Grandpa. What's Robbie doing?
I think once you make enough money, you have two options. You either become insufferable or you have the most fun you've ever had in your career. And I do think he's taking option B.
Yeah, I mean, clearly he's just I don't give a shit. I've been in so many goddamn movies at this point, I could do whatever I want. I'll be in Stardust. I'll be in Machete. I'll be in... He was also in Dirty Grandpa, which is incredible.
Listen, take the Mark Hamill option. God. Mark Hamill made his fucking fortune off of Star Wars. And guess what, baby boy? Now he's doing a bunch of fucking animation voices. And he's, famous for doing the Joker voice for one of the Batman series. He's crushing it. That's what I would do. Hey, companies, hear me out. Pay me $1 billion fucking dollars over the course of the next 10 years so I can just fuck off in my 40s.
Honestly, truly, if we could just one-hit wonder something, that would be great.
I know. It's I would love to just fuck off and do a bunch of shit that underpays but is passion projects. I think that'd be great. Anyway, so they're captured by these lightning pirates. Their whole thing is that the pirates think that they're lightning marshals and are trying to hunt them down. They're taxmen for lightning, I guess. And so Robert De Niro, who calls himself Captain Shakespeare, he interrogates Tristan and Yvain, and then appears to throw Tristan out the fucking window. But once he takes Yvain to his cabin under the ruse of treating her like some common wench, this is where the age of the movie comes in.
Yes, I didn't like this bit, but I was like, this is, it was. Yeah.
It's 2007. It's quite. There's also a plot contrivance that we'll get to that's gendered in a very stupid way. So he takes Tristan and Yvain to his quarters, and Tristan's just kind of there in his underwear, and Yvain's like, where'd you get the mannequin? And he's like, it gets them every time. That's how you get my reputation without having to spill a drop of blood. Have you ever tried to clean blood out of suede or whatever the fuck he says?
Incredible.
The reason he spares them is because he hears that Tristan is from England. He's from Wall. So he wants to hear tales of England. And that's why he calls himself Shakespeare, because he thinks a fancy English wordsmith and his enemies think of Shakespeare, which I thought was cute.
It is cute.
He drops them off at a port. Along the way, they encounter Ricky Gervais and a witch. What's her Sal? What's her name?
Yeah, it's a Ditchwater Sal. But they are about to get to Ditchwater Sal.
Yeah. They encounter them kind of on the way, and it's fine. They're just trying to sell some lightning, and when they get back on the ship, Tristan's there, all dressed up as a swashbuckler. And this is, I think, the part of the movie you were alluding to where it starts meandering, because Tristan just gets to learn how to be a pirate for a while.
Yeah, it's just they have cool pirate times together. It's fun.
It's giving that's the ship scene in Anastasia where they're just randomly learning how to dance. Same vibes.
I mean, listen, you have to have a dance scene so that way, like, we know that they're falling in love. Like Yvette starts to glow, or Yvain starts to glow whenever she dances with Tristan. It's like, that's how you know that it's true love.
Yeah, because what do stars do best? Shine.
That's right. That's important. That'll come up later.
Yeah. So they arrive at port. They get dropped off and they're trying to hitch a ride to Wall because Tristan is still very much trying to, I don't know if you remember, deliver Yvain to Victoria for her birthday. And they encountered Ditchwater Sal again, this time with her caravan, not in the office trying to sell lightning. And they're like, hey, can you give us a ride? Now, Ditchwater Sal, Yvain notices, can't see or hear her, and that's because Michelle Pfeiffer cursed her to never be able to see, hear, smell, touch the star ever, ever, ever. So Yvain gets cool, safe passage on this caravan, while Tristan gets turned into a fucking mouse.
It's really good.
It's
shrewd as ass.
Literally. She likes to... Somebody in this movie gets shrewd, another one gets their gender transed. It's great.
It's great.
So Yvain is like, hey, Tristan, can you give me a sign? Like, can you hear me? And he looks at some cheese, so she decides he can't understand her. And she gives a pretty sweet speech about how much she loves him and how she's always watched humans be in love, and it made watching Earth tolerable.
It's nice.
Thinking he couldn't hear or understand her. She just wanted to kind of get it off her chest. And then they finally get back to the market where Tristan was conceived.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So welcome home, Tristan, I guess. And they go stay at an inn because Tristan's all loopy from being shrewd. When he finally wakes up, he looks at Yvain and he's like, hey, did you mean all that shit that you said into the caravan? And she says, fuck you! You were supposed to be a mouse. And he said, yeah, but if I let you know that I knew what you were saying, then you wouldn't have said all that cute shit. So, I mean, like, it works. I think the implication is that they fuck.
Oh, what? No, they explicitly do because the ghosts are there, and the ghosts are like, "Hey guys, you gotta check this out. They're fucking," and all the other ghosts are like, "Hey, bro, don't be a fucking pervert." Like one of the ghosts is like clearly peeping on them, and this movie is weirdly horny in a fun way. I think that we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, bring back fun horny. Everything's like puritanical now. It drives me up the wall. It's either puritanical because a corporation needs it to be puritanical to sell in China, or it's puritanical because everyone thinks that everyone's experience is universal and the teens are scared of seeing a titty for some reason. Like, make it fun horny again. Bring that back for me.
I wonder. I'm gonna diverge to talk about this because I wanted to bring it up in our talking points, but like, there were like definitely like films that were for horny teen boys, like up until like the early 2010s, like Transformers. That's all, Megan Fox being sexy for young men. I mean, all the Fast movies do this to some degree. We just watched
the ones for horny teen girls.
Right. Twilight too, right? I wonder if, I don't know. Maybe this is bringing the back to the Marvel era, right, where Marvel movies are famously sexless.
What is it? Everyone is hot and no one is horny.
Yeah. I wonder. I don't know what's going on with our media. Things have been weird the last couple of years. Bring back fun horny, please.
Yeah, or the horniness that we see is like too serious.
Yeah, right. It's not just like, oh, hey, this person's sexy. It's like, oh, they're sexy. And I don't know if that has a meaningful difference on audio, but it means something different in my heart, and that's the most important thing.
Great, thanks for the opening clip to the show.
Awesome.
So, Tristan in the morning gets up and he cuts off a little lock of Yvette's hair.
Hey, fellas.
Yvette's hair.
You know how I was giving great advice earlier? Here's another piece of great advice that women love, is when you cut off their hair while they're sleeping. Ladies find that so charming.
If anybody does that to me ever, I would stab them with the same scissors.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
So
bro.
Cuts off a lock of Yvain's hair. Normal behavior. And he wraps it up in a little hanky, and he goes downstairs, and he tells the sleepy innkeep with the hookah, hey man, I'm gonna go tell Victoria that if you think about the sentence from Tristan's perspective, it makes sense, but it's the stupidest miscommunication I've seen on screen in a long time. Tristan
dumb.
says, tell her I've gone to see Victoria, to tell her I've met my true love, and I'm gonna stay with her. Now, Tristan, could you have been clearer? Yes. But what the innkeep tells Yvain is that he's sorry he's gone to see Victoria because he's fallen in love and he wants to spend the rest of his life with her, which to Yvain reads as, fuck you, I'm going to see Victoria.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, Yvain starts walking in kind of a trance towards Wall. And meanwhile, Septimus, the prince, is still converging on her. Michelle Pfeiffer is converging on her. And Tristan has just made it to Wall and has not yet realized that shit's about to go down. And who sees all of this but Tristan's mom, Una, who was a bird in the caravan along with Mouse Tristan and Yvain. So she knows who Yvain is. She's seen her son. Now she's taken the fucking caravan and she's going for Wall. Because what Tristan realizes when he presents the lock of hair to Victoria is that it's turned to Stardust. If Yvain crosses the Wall, she will turn into a rock and die. Before he can get to...
Which is bad.
Yeah, death is bad. Mm-hmm. So, before he can get to her, his mom gets to her and stops her. But the problem is that so does Michelle Pfeiffer. And Michelle Pfeiffer takes both the girls, takes into her evil manor, followed by Septimus, then followed by Tristan, who meets the guard on his way out. The guard is like, for years, I have been trying to keep you chuckle fucks out of there, or in here. It turns out I should have been keeping what's out there away. Fuck this, I quit. You do whatever you want.
He's like carrying his chair. He's like, nah, I'm done. I'm retiring. I'm cashing in my pension. Goodbye.
And you know what? Good for him. I would do the same in his shoes.
100%.
So Tristan and Septimus team up to fight Michelle Pfeiffer in her her very cool lair. I would fucking live there. And Septimus gets his ass handed to him. Tristan then proceeds to fight one of the sisters and wins. And then he has to fight, like, puppeted Septimus's body.
It's very cool. I like this.
It's a cool fight.
I don't know that voodoo dolls are a thing we should probably be using. I feel like there's some cultural appropriation stuff that maybe we should stay away from, but like it is kind of cool that the concept of a dude being a dead body being marionetted by another person is kind of fun. I like that. And the fight was very interesting because, like, at this point Tristan's a very good swordsman, but like he's fighting a person who's dead and like doesn't have to use like regular angles, and it's very fun that he's just like fighting them. And like also at this point Septimus's ghost is there, and he got drowned, so he got magically drowned, so he's all wet. So he is hanging out with his dead ghost brothers, just watching the fight, just like cheering from the sidelines.
And they're all looking at him like, is that you? And he's like, no, I'm still a ghost, I'm sitting here.
I'm here, dude. Yeah,
Tristan got taught sword fighting by Robert De Niro, which I did fail to mention. I won't blame you for this is a me fuck up. Robert De Niro, his whole thing is that he likes to cross-dress. And he is pretending to be very tough for his pirates, and his pirates are pretending that they don't know he's gay. And it's just very good because the entire time his second in command is like over it.
I didn't bring that up because it was like, yeah, like everybody's like kind of aware that he, is somebody who dresses like that. And like, it's a very small part of this film. This movie did win a gay and lesbian
a GLAAD award.
Alliance Against Defamation award in 2008. I assume for this.
Well, I'll say this. The way this was presented is very, very dated, but like
it's earnest in a way that, like, from the era, I feel like it comes across.
I do remember it kind of blew my gourd at the time, where I was like, "Oh, that's a man in a corset," and it's like it's not played for laughs necessarily. It's just kind of played, like you said, like in earnestness. I also like that at the end he winks at Henry Cavill, and Henry Cavill like blushes. He's like, no. It's good.
Shout outs.
Like it aged, but for a 2007 film,
Right.
it is quite earnest.
The intent still lands in a way that I don't find, mean or bad.
If this is anyone's first episode, wee woo, I'm gay. So I'm not saying this is a straight person. I'm queer. Anyway, so Tristan continues to fight Michelle Pfeiffer. She keeps hammering him with stuff. At one point, she kind of tricks them. And then Yvain, powered by love, is like, Tristan, hold me and close your eyes. And he's like, what? And she's like, what do stars do best? Shine. And then she glows so brightly that the power of her love literally explodes Michelle Pfeiffer. Now, the 7 brothers, they're all hanging out as ghosts. And they're like, fuck, there's no new king. We're stuck with each other forever. But surprise, if you've forgotten, Una, the sister, the slave, Tristan's mother, Tristan is now the last male heir of the line. So when he picks up the ruby, it turns red. And that means he is now fucking king of Stormhold, or whatever. So the epilogue is him and Yvain rule for 80 years. And then at the end of that 80 years, because they live forever because she's given him her heart voluntarily. That's a fun contrivance, that she can give him her heart, but like not literally. They light the Babylon candle and go to the sky, and now they're stars. And that's the end.
Yeah. No, it's nice.
Yeah, I liked it. I still really like it. I think it holds up.
I think so too, right? Like we've seen a lot of movies from this era, and I think this really does capture the like fun inventiveness of like adapting like an old story, or not an old story, but like a property that was popular 10 years prior, into a movie, and like making some different choices, but like generally kind of getting the spirit of it. And making it look kind of a fun little romp. I mean, the biggest touchstone, I think, is The Princess Bride. I think it's very similar to that kind of story.
Which is funny, because that's what was recommended to me on YouTube when I was watching it.
Right. A very similar conceit, which is like, here's a story about some, like, a boy and a girl on a magic hetero quest, and they meet a bunch of weirdos along the way.
Yeah. But charming weirdos, which is my favorite kind of weirdo. Yeah. Where do you land? Did you like it?
Yeah. I mean, I think it completely nails what it's going for. And I think that's really all we can ask, right? I don't think it has grand pretensions. I don't think it's trying to be a huge epic. I don't think it's trying to impart a message. It is just a fun fantasy story, and it's, I liked it.
Bring back the yes and mid-budget fantasy films. Because, I mean, like, we've had a lot of fun with this, and you can kind of consider on the opposite end of the spectrum from this, of the same era, is one of our other favorite flicks, Van Helsing.
Right. This came out, 4 years after Van Helsing, so... Van
Helsing was 2004, so... Yeah, bring back...
3 years, yeah.
Bring back the mid-budget fantasy flick. They're fun.
I don't know, like... I feel like I have this problem in my own creative writing, which is like I'm always trying to impart a message. Like I'm always trying to be like, this is a story about kaiju, but it's also about the ways the Catholic Church takes people and turns them into their own monsters. That's not a joke. That's a book that I sent to my agent recently. And like, I'm happy that I wrote that book, and I'm glad I'm trying to work those stories out. But like that's a thing that I kind of run up against, which is like I'm always trying to have a message in my fiction. I'm always trying to be like, oh, okay, this is what if Indiana was fantasy. What if all the mastodons were still alive, but also the pharmaceutical industry that lobbies our nation or our state legislature, what if they were necromancers? And it's like, it's a little on the nose, bud. And like, listen, I'm not, apologizing for that. I did that very clearly on purpose because it's fun and it's something I like to do. But I think there is something to be said about like, not everything has to be an analog. Not everything has to just be like a one-on-one, like here's the moral of the story, here's the message you're trying to impart. I'm wondering if you have that impulse too in your own writing.
I think so. I think I went through this slog that I'm actually I feel consciously coming out of now, where I kind of fell into this weird cinema sins void, where I'm like, everything has to make sense, everything has to have a clear message, everything has to, like, correlate, and has to be driven, and it has to, like, take a stance. And now I'm like, actually, I think maybe that was not the right impulse, and I guess I'm kind of glad that, like, my webcomic keeps getting pushed off, because I think the stories I'm interested in telling are served better by vagueness. So I was ranting to Aaron, dear audience. I was ranting to Aaron before we hit record on this call. I just saw Hadestown, the touring production, which is the tour of the Broadway production. And I think one of the things it runs into is, like, too much specificity and trying to kind of beat your head with the message of, like, anti-capitalism and unity in the face of, like, evil billionaires or whatever. And you get that enough from the, like, background characters milling about in Orpheus and Eurydice's love story in the off-Broadway. So in the off-Broadway, what the story kind of boils down to is the earnestness of Orpheus's love is so potent that it then inspires action in Persephone and Hades and in the workers, whereas in the touring production, it is more that, like, Orpheus becomes kind of a labor rights activist. It's very odd. But so I think in instances like that, it's like sometimes you are better off focusing on the moments and vibes of, like, endearing the characters you're trying to write for to your audience, and then letting their plights kind of speak for themselves, and maybe just aiming for, like, one simple thing that you're trying to convey. But I think we're in an age where we're kind of getting stuck trying to find analogs and trying to find more direct messages to impart in our fiction, and I don't think that's an us problem. I just think we're in that kind of period. And I think there's a place for that. I don't think it's a necessarily bad thing, but if you're out there and you're a creator, I also want to unshackle you and say that sometimes it's enough to have some dudes feeling some vibes.
Yeah, and I also think, like, that is certainly an impulse that comes from me being insecure as a writer and being like, oh, I have to have a big message, you know. This is a very adolescent impulse I feel in myself, which is like, you know, all stories must, you know, be big and important and be, like, about something. And I think you're 100% right. Like, sometimes you just have to, you know, tell a story that is just about the characters, and it can be inspired by, you know, real life things, but, like, it doesn't have to be so serious. And, you know, maybe that's for the best.
Yeah, I think it's okay to just kind of vibe sometimes. Yeah. And not to mention, sometimes I feel like the things that will actually resonate the most and will be the biggest and most important are the things that you approach with the most earnestness rather than the things you plot out the most carefully. So, food for thought. Indeed.
When we're not thinking about the ways in which media can get a little bit more fun and horny, where can we be found on the internet,
Leyla? You can find me at LEYLSES on Twitter, Tumblr. That's it. I'm just currently working a lot. If you're a games person, I'll see you at GDC in a couple of weeks. And if not, then you can enjoy my voice here.
You can find me on Twitter at AaronSXL and at my website at aavoigt.com. I do talk about tabletop RPGs, health policy, and writing. I've got a YouTube channel that's aavoigt on YouTube. I do another podcast with my friends Michael and Josh that's at The Bible Boys on Twitter. We've been working through the History Channel, the Bible series, which has been weird. We also just did an episode about the Battles BC episode of Moses and Exodus, which is a lot of just like, hey, you know Moses? He was a genocidal maniac, and it was awesome. Battles BC, weird program. Not sure why the History Channel needed to do it, but honestly, I preferred it to fucking Pawn Stars, so whatever. if that seems like your cup of tea, check us out. Our theme song is Obsolete by Keshko from the album Filmmakers Reference Kit Volume 2. You can find more of their music at keshko.bandcamp.com. Leyla, how do you think that we should end this podcast?
Well, I can't say no, not after he's gone all the way to Ipswich.
We'll see you all next time.